Hello and welcome to the Walk Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belfort, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. We have a full show for you today. Of course, spring training carries on, but the Blue Jays will not be undefeated this year in the Grapefruit League. We'll dive into that. Max Scherzer, oh boy, just a quote machine, this man, and I cannot wait to see what he says next. We'll share some of those quotes with you. Dalton Varsho, obviously on the way to recovery. There has been a few updates on how he's doing. Little spoiler, he is ahead of his recovery curve. Good news for the Blue Jays. Blair and Barker had some really interesting stuff to talk about when it came to an extension for Bo Bichette and what it would cost. And so we will dive into this. It does feel more and more like maybe Vladdy is gone. And I knock on wood, I'm wrong. Hope that this is not the case. And obviously, it would be beautiful to keep both these guys. However, one point that Jeff Blair made is that it is going to be incredibly difficult to replace both Bo and Vlad's offense in 2026. And so, if you can maybe pivot and lock up Bo, then you only need to worry about replacing Vladdy's offense, which is going to be very difficult to do on its own. The Buffalo Boys. We'll talk who is impressing, who is in line for maybe that 25th, 26th man spot in the lineup, and who could be sent down to Buffalo and we could see sometime in April or May. And then last but not least, we will talk the AL East and in particular the Boston Red Sox. Are they worth worrying about? And I would love to know your thoughts on this, grounds crew. So as we go through these topics, feel free to drop your comments below. Obviously, if you are watching, we truly appreciate it. Feel free to hit that subscribe button if you are not subscribed to the channel, and the like button goes a long way. And on that, one last piece of housekeeping before we dive into this here. I head to spring training on Monday, and we have Baseball Town making its inaugural debut at spring training in Dunedin. We're going to be doing that at Woodwright Brewing Company, and the guests are going to be phenomenal. We have a heck of a show locked in here. Our player panel is going to consist of one of the Blue Jays' top prospects, and Alan Roden, Chad Dallas, one of the pitching prospects in the system, who probably would have made his major league debut at the end of last season had it not been for needing to get Tommy John surgery. He is done the surgery in full rehab, and he is partnered up with Ricky Tiedemann. They're kind of the two guys working on that. So he's coming down, and then as well as Riley Terada, first baseman, third baseman for the Buffalo Bison, also had a heck of a year with the Bisons last season and also due to make his major league debut at some point in 2025. And as if that's not enough, our media panel is going to be Ben Nicholson Smith, BNS from At the Letters and Sportsnet, and then good friend of the show and writer, reporter with MLB.com, Keegan Matheson. Tickets available at Woodwright Brewing or in the link that I've dropped in the comment section here. Tickets are going fast. We've only got about room for 80 people, and we're already just under 50% sold. And we know darn well, this is what the brewery said too, is they're like, yeah, this is going to sell out. People 3-4 days out are going to buy all the tickets next week because they're going to be in spring training and be able to plan around that. So again, if you are going to be down there, would love to meet you, would love to run into you, get your tickets, and we'll talk Blue Jays and drink beer next Thursday. Why not?
Very cool. Very cool.
All right, Mr. Mack. When you look at spring training, and I'm going to use your little, a good small sample size is better than a bad small sample size with this. Spring training doesn't mean anything, but also a good spring training is better than a bad spring training. Safe to say?
Safe to say, yes.
He's not the best co-host in the biz for nothing, folks. So the Blue Jays actually wound up being handed their first loss of the Grapefruit League yesterday to the Baltimore Orioles, losing 11-8. They actually came back from quite a deficit. They were down 7-0 in the second inning. So a little bit of positivity in that game. My question for you is, when they are playing American League East teams, how much thought do you think goes into exposing their players' strengths, their pitching strengths to a team that you need to play 14 times in the season?
I I don't think so. I don't think much at all. It just feels like the scouting report's already out on Max Scherzer, right?
Yes, yes.
Like,
Actually, that's a great point about our starting pitching is that for the most part, the scouting report is out on all of them. I mean,
right,
our youngsters, Bowden Francis at 29 years old.
right. So yeah, I don't know how much. I mean, pitching is probably more of a factor, right? If you're
Hmm.
worried about like, oh, we got a guy with a funny arm slot, or a guy with a splitter that really moves or whatever, right? Being able to see that in spring training. Like, it's one thing to have a scouting report, it's another thing to get live at bats against it,
Hmm.
I suppose.
Hmm.
Whereas from a hitting standpoint, if Elvis Martinez is in the batter's box against the Orioles, I don't think they're going to learn much from that. Like, I don't think anything that he excels at or struggles with in spring training, I don't think you can chalk up to anything other than it's spring training, right?
Getting
If
his
he can't
timing
catch
together.
up with this fastball, well, yeah, he's been swinging a bat for 2 weeks. If he really got a hold of this pitch, maybe your pitcher just, put it where he shouldn't have. Like
I wonder
it's
this all
it's
the
too
time,
hard to
dude.
read.
Because, like, I really do, like you heard them talking about it on the broadcast when they were playing the Phillies, right? And they had put
Mm-hmm.
all of their regulars in. And one of the things that Buck touched on was, oh, yeah, they love to play their regulars against National League teams for just the reason that we talked about. But I also wonder, like, how much of that is perception, right? Like, I'd love to pick John Schneider's brain and be like, seriously, man, are you worried about showing off Nick Sandlin's arm slot to the Boston Red Sox? Like, are you concerned about Bowden Francis showing off his splitter to interdivisional teams? Like, maybe he is. But I do think it's overblown. I would love to hear from the grounds crew.
Yeah.
What do you folks think? Like, is this because this is a topic that gets talked about a lot, Adam, right? And it's just like, I do wonder how much of it is just to fill airspace and how much of it is legit. Because for the most part, it feels like when you're talking about hitters, they're just trying to get their swing timed up, right? Like they're
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get in shape. And like I can see how pitchers might be a little different, showing new pitches or whatever it may
Yeah, yeah.
be. But you always got to play that adjust and then readjust game.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like the philosophy of it from a like I guess I buy the theoretical competitive advantage
Hmm.
of like, oh, like we're gonna not show all our cards. But I also don't like how in our heads they already are, if that's the case. Like how we're running scared if that's already the approach. Like that
If
feels like a
February
Rays
28th, I'm
mentality,
with you. If February
not
28th,
a
that's your concern,
right.
ugh.
Like we should just be confident in our guys. Be like, no, we got a bunch of mashers here. Like fucking scouting report all you want. We're still gonna beat you, right? Like
Hmm.
that's the attitude I want to have. You know. Feels like the Rays to go out and be like, no, we're not going to show you this new 22-year-old that throws with both hands at the same time and does
At
like
the
an
same time.
underhand granny shot. We're not going to do it. You're going to have to see it in April for the first time. I don't know. And then it feels like the Yankees and Dodgers. It'll be like, yeah, here you go. This is our
Yeah.
guy. He throws with his eyes closed. Deal with it. You know.
Yesterday's game was kind of fun too to watch all of because obviously with them down so much, they really did get all of their kind of like double A and triple A guys into the lineup because why wouldn't you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Charles McAdoo, friend of the show, and of course he was the piece coming back from Pittsburgh when they traded Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to the Pirates last trade deadline. He hit his first dinger of the spring yesterday. The kid looks good, man. I really like this McAdoo, 22 years old, probably going to start with the Bisons this season if there's room. This is this is a weird spot for the Blue Jays to be in, especially when they're sitting at I mean depending on what source you're going with, but they're ranked anywhere between 19th to 24th farm system in baseball depending on who you're talking to. So they're kind of in that like upper bottom third and you have a lot of dudes taking at
Upper
bats
bottom
at Triple
third,
A,
man.
man. Like I just like yeah, the upper bottom third. You like that positive
I
spin?
do. I do.
Uh
It's great.
my glass is a third full.
It's so much better than bottom half.
Yeah,
Upper
that's right.
bottom third
Yeah.
sounds so much better.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you look at a guy like Charles McAdoo, and you'd love to see him getting at bats at AAA, especially with where he's at and how good his swing looked last year. He really had a solid season in 2024. So you'd love to challenge the kid, but then you start looking at all of the guys who are lined up to play in AAA next year, and it's like, who are you knocking off? Like there's all these like 26-year-old guys, like a lefty masher like Will Robertson, right? And yeah, I don't know if Will Robertson is ever going to be anything in the major leagues. Friend of the show, great kid. Again, lefty who put up 20 bombs at AAA last year, hit 220, struggled a little bit. Is he a guy that we're going to see possibly DFA'd? Like, where is this team at? I would love to see a trade made where some of these guys are given opportunities elsewhere where they could really bloom into something and
mhm.
opens up some spots for guys who need at bats. We have not seen that yet, and I'm not saying it's not coming, and I'm not saying that maybe they're going to try and hang on to all of these assets until the deadline, and maybe that's the plan is move their chips in then. I don't know, but again, obviously they're not going to hold a guy like McAdoo back if he's knocking the door down, but it may, like we saw Riley Terada get the move up to AAA from AA last year, and it was because he was literally not mashing at double A. He just had hit all of the checkpoints they wanted to see at him at 25
Mhm.
years old. They moved him up to triple A, and then he took off after being challenged. And so it would be a real shame to, if there's, you just don't want to DFA a guy or you don't
Mhm.
want to make a trade quite yet. So you're just kind of, even if McAdoo, the only McAdoo will be called up, by the way, if he's, again, just exceeding to levels where you can't ignore him.
Mhm.
But if he's checked all the boxes and, not lighting the world on fire, maybe they do hold him back an extra few months. And that would be a real shame, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Moving on to Max Scherzer. Mad Max. Love seeing him in a Blue Jays uniform. We got to see him for the first time on Tuesday. Make some, put some innings in, pitched 2 innings, had a few strikeouts. He looked okay. And I love the way he talks after a game because he is an open book. There is no pulling punches with Max Scherzer. Right away, he was like, "Yeah, I hated that Alejandro Kirk was calling my game. I'm gonna do it from now on." I mean, he worded it nicer than that, but for the most part, that was pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah.
what he said. And this is from Hazel May. So she was interviewing John Schneider after the game, and this is from Big John. He goes, "We realized on the fly that Scherzer doesn't really like to give high fives on the way into the dugout. And I was like, you tried to high five Max Scherzer? Like, you are not talk about not reading a book
Mm.
by its cover. Just being like, I'm sure there's more to this. No, there's not. She asked too if he tried to high five him, and he said, I learned from others who went for it and didn't get a response. I just love the idea of Max Scherzer leaving his teammates hanging. You know, you're just like, Max,
Three
okay.
up, three down. Well done.
Yeah. He went, I went about my day and made the adjustment in the second inning. Look at that, eh? Adjusting on the fly. Big John. Love to see it. This is also from Max Scherzer. He's not a fan of the automated ball strike system. He's like, can we just be judged by humans? Which is, again, it's as a old man myself. These old man opinions, I'm like, man, this is what I'm
Are,
talking about.
are you out on the
No,
Robo
I
Ups?
I actually love it.
It's awesome, right?
I actually love it. And you know what I will say, Adam? The speed of it, they finally did some, they finally nailed the speed of a challenge, right? Like even in Buffalo last year when I was watching it, there were times where you're like, okay, like why is this taking 30 seconds to turn over? And it's literally like they're turning it over in 3 seconds, or they're like, yeah, this is the correct call.
I feel like as the pitches come in, like when they do the challenge and then they show like the slow motion, it's not like super slow motion, but it's essentially slow motion that, and then, oh, here's where it catches. I don't need that. You know,
Hmm.
like you said, let's just do the instant one.
Hmm.
You can flash it up on the board or whatever. But like the second that pitch happens, we already have the answer, right?
Yeah.
So if the appeal comes in because the players don't have the answer, we don't need to watch it, right? Like we don't need to. Do you think that adds to the game, like having
No.
the replay? Like
No. I do
I'm
not
not
think
in
it adds
stadium,
to
so
the
I
game.
don't know what it's actually like in the stadium, but I'm just imagining they appeal and then they all turn to the scoreboard and they watch it happen and they go, okay, good, right on, nice. Like there should
That
just be a hey, what was
yeah,
that? And they go, oh yeah, no, you're right, sorry, change
which
it,
is what
moving
they're
on.
doing, and I'm all for it,
Okay.
man. I'm all for it. I'm curious your thoughts on, and grounds crew, feel free to chime in here. Who do you want challenging here? Obviously, the pitcher, the catcher, and the batter all have the ability to do so. So, on both sides, are you personally? I don't even want the pitcher challenging. I would take the pitcher challenging out altogether. I think that it should be the catcher making the decision. I mean, we watched Max Scherzer get fooled by Alejandro Kirk's exceptional pitch framing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
lose the challenge in the first inning. And I think just the way the pitcher is coming off the mound after
Yeah, he's
delivery,
cockeyed.
like, come on. Like, do not let the pitcher and the
Well,
pitchers,
I don't think you even want your pitcher tracking pitches, do you?
yes.
Like let her buck and then do whatever you got to do to get into position to protect your head
Yeah.
or, like if your
Because it is
natural
going to be,
delivery is to fall off to first base, I don't want you like keeping an eye over the shoulder as you're going down, being like, let's
mhm,
make sure that's a strike just in case. I am with you. I don't think that's actually necessarily happening, but if it's happening 2%,
yeah.
that's too much. So I'm with
So,
you. Catcher only. And then for the framing aspect, like you said, with Kirk and Scherzer there,
yeah,
it's
you're
like Kirk
fooling
would have known.
your own
Kirk would have
teammates.
known, dude, like what are we doing here, man? Yeah.
For sure he would have. For sure he would have. And I
Even like
think
that one bounced in the dirt, man. We're not challenging that.
what will be interesting to see
Uh,
Alejandro Kirk's leadership skills this season, because this is the first time where he's kind of being thrust into that number one catcher role. He's going to be expected to catch 120 games this season is most likely where he's at. Maybe 110. We'll see how his bat's doing, but if he's hitting well, they're going to wish him behind the plate as much as physically possible. Obviously, you
yeah.
don't wish to wear the guy out, but I mean, look at who we've got as our options for backup catchers right now. Christian Betancourt. The Magic Man, right? Tyler Heineman, Phil Clark, who is not a bad option, but he's never played Major League Baseball. Is this who you wish to be as your secondary catcher behind a guy who's already pretty young, right? 25 years old. So I do think that the Blue Jays are kind of setting up to have their backup catcher as either Betancourt or Heineman, two experienced dudes, right? But how much do you wish those bats in your lineup? Like, probably as little as possible.
Alejandro Kirk, for the record, games played. He's 5 seasons into his career now. 960, 139, 123, and 103. However, a lot of those games are as a
DH.
DH.
Yeah.
So, as a catcher, which something's either got to go really well or really wrong for Alejandro Kirk to get any reps as a DH this year, right?
Yes, I would say so.
Um, so as a catcher, 44, 78, 99, 93.
So Alejandro has yet to break that triple digits for catching appearances, and he's being expected to probably catch 20 more than his previous career high. Can he do it? We're going to find out.
I mean, he's only 26 this year, right? So entering his prime by all accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to choose to be optimistic, not because I feel optimistic, but because I want to be optimistic. Is that okay?
I think that's great.
Okay. Kirk,
Now,
120 games behind the plate.
what I will say is I think that if you give Kirky the run for the ABS challenges and just take it out of the pitcher's hand, you're going to see the percentage of correct overturns go way up. And it's just, again, from everything we just talked about, right? Is that expecting the pitcher to kind of judge where that ball lands after he's fallen off the mound after a pitch, probably a bad idea. Now, as for hitters, I almost there was an interesting thing floated in Discord where they were saying if I'm the Jays, I give every single player the ability to challenge in spring training, and then you kind of keep
See
track
how good they
of
are,
keep
what their
track of
scores
who
are.
gets it
Yeah.
right, who gets it wrong, and then the top percentages you just give it to them, and everyone
Right.
else is just
You have
sorry,
a
too bad.
70% accuracy. You have a green light. You have a 12% accuracy, red light.
I love the rhetoric on this new rule too, dude, because so many people are like, it's so awesome. We're not going to have games decided by bad calls anymore. And all I can think is, oh man, imagine game 7 of the World Series. Okay. The New York Yankees have already blown both of their challenges overturned. And then a
And then
bad call still screws them in the end.
it'd be
It's just
amazing.
like, but now the onus is on them for using their challenges incorrectly. It's going to be
Yeah, it's
hilarious.
true.
Yeah.
It's true. Well, I'll tell you what, Kirk has been touted for his ability to frame a pitch,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh, it's a skill set. We've kind of been saying for the last 3 years that like it's a dying skill set because with the automated umps,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be less important. With a limit on the challenges,
Yeah,
like
this
if this is
ABS
the
system
way,
does mitigate that a little for sure.
it does say okay, he still needs to, right? Because if you can steal a pitch or whatever, I don't know. It's here's a new potential skill set is a catcher that knows the strike zone,
Mm-hmm.
right? We'll see if Kirk has that. But like you said, that ability to recognize what should and shouldn't be challenged. That because that'll be something that will get tracked. Like as much, I mean, it might sound stupid, but as much as umpires get a scorecard now, right? Like there are websites that track accuracy of umpires,
Mm-hmm.
this many missed calls in, this many missed calls out. Here's the run differential estimated effect of it all, right? We're gonna see the same thing with like catchers and challenges. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, Kirk didn't challenge these 7 balls that were called strikes, or like or vice versa, or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like catchers, we're gonna have scorecards for catchers that like didn't challenge that should have, versus challenges that they got correct versus challenges that they didn't get correct, right? Like that's going to be an interesting
More
little new
statistics.
statistical
Finally,
category to track.
something
It's about
baseball can
time,
embrace. Yeah,
right?
exactly. More
It's about time
stats.
baseball
Love
has
it.
more stats. No, but truly, it'll be something to I'm curious about.
I am too. And feel free to let us know what you're thinking on this ABS challenge system. I love hearing from folks that just have like such a different opinion or like bring up
Mm-hmm.
something that I hadn't even thought of. You know, like I hadn't thought of keeping track of who gets what right on those
Mm-hmm.
challenges and just being like, listen, here's the three top guys who just seem
Yeah.
to get it right. Maybe it's the way to go.
Yeah.
All right, folks, let's move on to a little bit of good news, which is the premier center fielder in all of Major League Baseball, the best defensive outfielder that we have seen in a Toronto Blue Jays uniform since Kevin Kiermaier last year. But love Dalton Varsho. The guy is a phenom when it comes to playing center field. Definitely one of the best in baseball. And he manages to pop 20 a year. Do we want more out of his offense? Maybe. But you know what? Dalton Varsho's offense is going to be less of a glaring hole, I think, this year. If Bo Bichette can rebound and Anthony Santander has a similar season to last year. So Dalton Varsho, shoulder injury, right? He's been rehabbing most of the offseason. Hazel May reporting that he's been throwing on back-to-back days, and he is now up to 120 feet. Dalton goes, I'm looking ahead of schedule from what a lot of people kind of thought. He's happy with where he's at. He's understanding mechanics of throwing again, being comfortable, and he's saying that he is able to let it go, which is what you really want out of an outfielder, to be able to just fire that ball in without thinking about it, right? The last thing you need is your guy in the outfield being like, oh, this might not be good. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's good.
Dalton Varsho, I don't know if you knew this. I think it was Shai Davidi's article on him yesterday. Um, a farmer.
I buy that.
You buy that, you're like, I didn't know that, but I can look at his face and I can make a pretty educated guess.
He's thick. He looks like he's throwing a hay bale for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. He had big plans to dig up his barn and redo his barn, and his shoulder injury held him back. He's like, I could only get on the tractor. I'm like, this is some small town Saskatchewan shit, is what this is.
This is. I like that he was like he didn't just hire outside help.
Yeah, right? He's like, I can do this.
There's a love for the labor. I respect
Yeah.
that. That's
Especially with Dalton Varsho, whose dad played in the majors. So it's not like it's a lack of funds thing. It was just like, I want to do this. So,
yeah, he's got that 1980s six-figure MLB check in his
yeah, that's
heritage.
right. That six-figure MLB check from the 1980s.
Uh,
So no word on when Dalton Varsho is back, but the fact he's ahead of schedule is good news. And they were roughly thinking he might be back end of April, early May. So if he's ahead of that schedule, who knows? We may only need to see a Nathan Lucas for a week or so out of the start of the season.
there you go.
Okay. Um, we were talking this a little before we hit record, but Blair and Barker made some very
Yeah,
interesting
I
points.
heard this earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You did hear this earlier. Blair and Barker, very much on the sign Bo Bichette train. And I agree with all of their points here, which is basically that it is going to be incredibly difficult in 2026 to replace both Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s offense. It's going to be not just hard, let's just face it. It's going to be impossible to replace it in one season, especially being the open market is going to be tough to compete with all the top dogs. And then on top of that, there isn't really anyone in the minor leagues pushing to be the next guy yet at this level. Like there's some high-end prospects worth getting excited about, but right now as we speak, there is no one looking to fill Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s offense and Bo Bichette's offense. So they started to go through kind of comparables, right? And how much each player is getting paid. Francisco Lindor making the most AAV at 34 million. Of course, he's on a 10-year deal that was 315 mil or something like that. And then you got Carlos Correa, who's at 33 million AAV. And of course, Trey Turner also near the top of that, as well as Corey Seager. Is Bo Bichette there? No. But if you look at the Willie Adames contract, which I think wound up being it was 7 or 8 years maybe, and 180 million. Willie got paid, but that's probably right around the realm is what Blair and Barker were
7 year,
talking.
182.
7 year, 182. So what Blair and Barker were floating is that they think you could lock Bo up 7 years, 200 million. Now maybe there's an opt out or something in there, but I think if you can do that, hell yeah, let's get it frickin' done. Now, we were talking beforehand, Adam. You're kind of in the same boat, right? Like, if you could get Bo Bichette 7 years, $200 million, and yes, there's a lot of risk still involved in that, especially jumping the gun now or early in the season before he's truly proven he's rebounded. Are you in?
Okay, hold on. I'm just laughing at the premise that Bo Bichette is a risk and needs to prove
Yeah. No, I'm
that
with you.
that he's rebounding. Like this is a guy that is now 6 seasons into his MLB career, has 2,500 career MLB at bats, and has had 70 bad games.
Yeah. No, it's a good point.
The most recent season, was abysmal. The 5 seasons before that, he was on track for a $300 million contract. Like, I don't know.
And in his defense, Adam, last season was so injury marred that even the 81 games, 82 games he was able to be on the field, he was fighting through it.
Also a good point, right? When he was healthy, he still wasn't healthy.
Mm-hmm. It's also tough to stop and start throughout the season, because he missed chunks of times at different points in 2024.
He's facing pitchers that are in midseason form, and he's in his second spring training outing, essentially, right? No, so like I'm all out on Bo needs to prove himself. I'm worried about Bo. Like if we're hold on, back up the truck. If we're talking about giving 500 million to Vladdy, who is
and we're balking at 200 million for Bo,
and we're questioning is Bo reliable coming from Vladdy, who is a coin toss if he's going to give you a 700 OPS or a 900 OPS.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's, to me, if you told me 2 seasons ago we're only going to get to keep one of these guys, who would you rather keep? It was Bo Bichette, and it wasn't close. So there's like for sure recency bias here with the adoration for Vlad and the trepidation on Bo. So like let's just calm down on any sort of tapping of brakes on a Bo deal. If we can get Bo signed for, I know Blair and Barker said 7 years, 180 to 200-ish million. Adames just signed for, what do we say, 7 years, 185. But he's also 29.
31. Oh, maybe
30.
29, yeah.
He's older. So yeah, he's 29, 5 months. He'll be 30 at the end of this season.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is his age 30 season. Like honestly, that's a contract that takes him to 37. If you had to do the same for Bo, a contract that takes him to 37, you had to give him 10 years at the same AAV or whatever, right? Like, fuck, that still feels like maybe one of the best things that could have happened to this organization was the 2024 season that Bo had
Yeah.
that knocked his value down a peg. Like there is a chance for an absolute steal on Bo Bichette if that's the case. Like the
If
thought of getting Bo for potentially under 200 million
yeah.
is like, why are we not doing that? If that's what he wants, how have we not already
And
like
there's
submitted the
no
paperwork?
there's no word on
No,
if
of
that's what
course.
he wants,
Of
obviously,
course.
right? And I mean, even today I was reading some of the comments from the clip of Blair and Barker talking about it, and so many people are like, you just look at Bo's body language and you just know he doesn't want to be here. And I just like it's so funny to me how people judge an introvert. Like it's just like every person I talk to on this Toronto Blue Jays beat, right? Anyone who has covered this team to any extent, they all
Yeah.
say this is just who Bo is.
Yeah.
He's not miserable. He just
He's
is an
resting bitch
introvert.
face.
He just
Yeah.
doesn't want to dance around and be everybody's bud.
I bet you him and Max Scherzer just fucking high five in secret all the time,
High
though.
five in secret, right? It's just like,
Like we've been
let's
saving
get it
these
out.
ones up.
Turns out we do love this. Yeah.
Man. No, yeah, I don't know. It's what give me a long-term deal for Bo over a long-term deal for Vlad any day of the week.
I will say this too, Adam. I do think that there's got to be a little bit of fear might be the wrong word, but I think worry should be seeping into Bo Bichette's head a little bit concerning his market. And I say that because we watched some of these other guys' market fall out. And obviously, maybe Bo has all the confidence in the world in himself to completely and totally rebound. And if I was him, I would. And I know there's probably no one that knows the business of baseball better than Bo Bichette, except for maybe Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? Bloodlines
Sure.
breed that kind of ability to sit and wait and know when to strike and when the iron's hot and all of this stuff that comes with free agency that if you don't have a dad who played Major League Baseball would all be new shit to you, right? And doubt and stuff would creep in far more than with these guys who have seen their fathers go through it.
Mhm.
But maybe there is a little worry. Maybe there is a little doubt in Bo Bichette's head. And maybe you can lock him up for 7 years, 200 million with a opt out after 3 for him to, if at 29, 30, he does decide that he made a mistake to go back to it, right? Especially if your AAV is right around where the top shortstops are getting paid.
So speaking of top shortstops, just for reference for people that are like, yeah, what is the going rate for a shortstop? Top AAV in 2025 by shortstop. Francisco Lindor with the Mets, 34.1 million. Carlos Correa with the Twins, 33.3 million. Corey Seager with the Rangers, 32.5 million. And then we're down into the 20s. Trey Turner, 27.3. Bobby Witt Jr., 26.3. Willie Adames, we just mentioned at the top of this, 26 million. So
So can you lock, pardon me, can you lock Bo Bichette in for that Trey Turner Willie Adames type of AAV? Because if you can, I say you freaking do it like right
how
now.
how how about this for a sales pitch in the meeting with Bo Bichette? I don't know if he'd love this or hate this. My gut instinct is he wouldn't like it. Trey Turner's making 27.3. We'll give you 27.3, which will make you the highest paid second baseman in Major League Baseball. And you move over to second base for us.
Oh, you know what? That
Marcus
is,
Simeon. Remember your old pal Marcus Simeon?
I do remember my old
He's
pal Marcus Simeon.
he's a converted shortstop. He's happy at second base. He's only making 25 million. You'd be making more than him. Have you
Pittance.
ever hit 48 home runs?
That's true.
I don't know. I mean, like there
That's
is
actually
the
not a bad sales pitch.
like the thing is when he was a 22-year-old, didn't want to move off of shortstop. Understandably, shortstops get paid more than second baseman. So there is the concern of like, by moving to second base, I'm limiting my ability to make money, right? By signing this deal, we're essentially saying like, look, we're gonna pay you like top shortstop money, but also it's in the best interest of the team for you to not fucking play shortstop anymore. Like you like winning, right?
Yeah.
Guess what's standing in the way of that?
Maybe
You
that's
playing
a hard
shortstop.
sell. Maybe that's a
That
hard
might be a
sell.
hard sell. No, I okay. Maybe we don't word it that way,
Yeah.
Scott. But I mean, there is. It's like when a guy wants to be the highest paid, whatever his position is of all time, there's a chance to do that for Bo Bichette, like,
Mm-hmm.
and have a move to second by
Yeah.
doing this, right? Being like,
Yeah.
look, hey, you don't have the arm strength for second base. We've got a guy with more arm strength
Shortstop, but yes, yes,
ready, or
yes.
sorry, for
Yeah.
does he have it for second base? I don't know. Um,
Just thought I'd beat the commenters to it, buddy.
thank you, appreciate it. But like it does that cancel out the slap in the face of moving off short to be like, well, we're moving you off short, but we're still going to pay you like a shortstop, so who cares? You
Maybe it
know,
does. Maybe it does. And you know what? It's so difficult to judge the type of guy Bo Bichette is when it comes to viewing the team and what's best for the team, right? Like, and you know what? If you are going to lock in long term, maybe that is the time when you can kind of reconcile with where you're at defensively and make the best decision for the team, right? Because you're not worried about keeping your value up or maximizing your war and all that sort of stuff that comes with sticking it short.
like Bo's not bad defensively other than his arm,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not being crazy. I'm not taking crazy pills
No,
here to say
his range is fine.
he could win a gold glove at second base, right?
He might be able to. I mean, honestly, I think every Blue Jays fan watching this right now, when you think of Bo Bichette at shortstop, what you literally envision is him hair mailing, right? Now that it's the no longer, we can't
Mm-hmm.
hair mail anymore now that he's
No.
cut his hair. But you know what? Watching that ball sail 10 feet over top of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s head, like it happens way too much. Way too
Yeah.
much.
So I don't know. Someone's going to point out that UZR metrics of his ability deep on. Anyways,
Yeah.
whatever. It is what it is. I've never seen Bo like bluff one through his ankles or anything like that.
Hmm.
I feel like he passes the vibe check with his glove and his footwork. It's just that, like you said, the arm strength is a little bit, well, a lot of bit underwhelming. So I don't know. Him at second base, you're like,
Yeah.
look, man, you could go down. You could be Ring of Honor with the Blue Jays. You could be, you know, paid as the best at your position, which is an awesome feather in the cap.
Hmm.
You could play a position you have a legitimate shot at more like awards for. I do think you're at this point taking crazy pills to think he's going to win a gold glove at shortstop.
Yeah.
But Vlad won one at first. So,
That's true. So maybe crazy
he could
pills.
certainly
Let's
win one
all
at
get
second.
hopped up on him. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. That deal, sign Bo. If you could sign Bo for 200 million right now, that's also got to give you an edge on signing Vlad, doesn't it?
You would think.
Right?
But I mean, unless all their lip service of being best friends and wanting to spend their entire careers together is just that lip service. But I mean,
Could be.
yeah,
Either way, all things being even, you give me 15 years of Vlad at 600 million, or you give me
7 years of
10
Bo.
years
Yeah.
or 7 years of Bo or whatever at 200 to 300 million, and give me that contract every day of the week.
And
Because
they're both risky. Like there's obviously risk attached to any long-term mega contract. But yes, if you can pivot from Vlad and Reel in Bo. I'm all for it. Drop your comments below, Grounds Crew. Would love to hear your thoughts on Bo Bichette, extending him, what your thoughts are on the money it would take to do so, and if it's even a likelihood. Like, again, this is all speculation, and we don't know where Bo's at or what he wants out of his next 10 years of baseball. And maybe he does want to be out of Toronto, but he has not stated that. In fact, all the things he has said is that he would like to stay in Toronto. Of course, no one believes him because he doesn't do it with a smile. So, um, moving on, let's wrap this show up. We got a couple topics to get to still here. We will touch on the Boston Red Sox in the AL East, but first, the Buffalo Boys and who has impressed in the first 4 games of spring training. I have 4 gentlemen here to talk about. Number one being Aroldis Martinez, who continues to hit the ball with a massive exit velo. He continues to hit it deep and into the power gaps, and he's also hit a couple over the fence. So, you know what? This is all the things the Blue Jays need. We've talked about Aroldis Martinez a few times in the last couple weeks. We don't need to spend too much time on him. Same with Alan Rodin, who also continues to be an offensive threat at the plate. And these are the guys you need to do this, right? The guys that when you looked forward into spring training, these are the guys you kind of, brought up. Aroldis
Mm-hmm.
and Rodin. Can they be those guys? So far, so good. Another guy that has been putting in a good spring training so far, getting into a couple games recently, is Charles McAdoo. We talked about him off the top, hitting that home run yesterday. This is a kid who plays a pretty good center field, a pretty good left and right field. He is 22 years old and currently ranks in the top 10 prospects within the Blue Jays system. Is there a spot for him at AAA? Time will tell. Sure hope so. Would love to see him get some at bats at the more advanced level. We'll see where he's at. McAdoo, by the way, is not a guy who's going to break with this team. I don't care what he does in spring training. He's just too raw, and I think it would be
Yeah,
bad for his development. But to watch him do well against big leaguers is fantastic. Let's build that
encouraging.
confidence, get
Totally.
him down in AAA, and get him some at bats against some wily old vets that you wouldn't see at the AA level. Finally, the last guy I wanted to bring up is a pitcher out of the bullpen, lefty Mason Fluharty. He played last year with the Buffalo Bisons, had an up and down season. Young kid. And when he was on, he was on. And when he struggled with control, well, like most pitchers, you struggle with control. You're up shit creek a little bit with no paddle because you just start walking, guys.
I think it was a pitching ninja tweet I saw. If I'm not quoting him, he's getting credit anyways, but it was something along the lines of like, nobody cares how hard you threw ball four.
Yeah, that's
Right? Isn't that just perfect? Doesn't that
It's
sum it
so
up
perfect.
so
Nobody
nicely?
cares how fast or what the spin rate is on ball four exactly. So
Yeah.
Mason Fluharty, lefty. Again, this is a guy who really does have an out pitch. He really does rack up some Ks when he's hitting his spots. So can this 23-year-old take the next step? So far, he's looked good in spring training. And there is a possibility of a hole for a left-handed reliever with the Blue Jays. I mean, yes, you've got Ryan Yarborough, but outside of that, pretty thin pickings.
Mm-hmm.
So would love to see this kid make some progress. I don't think that Fluharty is a guy you're going to see break camp with the team. But remember the name because I guarantee this is a dude who makes his major league debut in 2025. I have no doubt about
Wow.
it. Really good kid. I managed to actually have a chat with him down at Salem Field when I was covering the Bisons last season. You can actually check that out on the Instagram walk-off page. But
Nice.
yeah, good kid. And again, a lefty in an organization that lacks lefties. So
Mm-hmm.
Mason Fluharty, keep an eye on him. All
Nice.
right, let's wrap things up, Mr. Mack. The AL East, the Boston Red Sox is on everybody's um, topics to talk about when it comes to the East, and it's because they have really bolstered their lineup, getting Alex Bregman, um, Garrett Crochet, obviously a big one. where are you at on the Boston Red Sox? Is this a team that you view as truly a competitive team that's going to really make life more difficult on this Blue Jays squad?
Um, okay, so Yankees, Orioles, those are the two favorites to win the division, right?
Yeah.
Red Sox, yeah, Bregman, they got some talent. They got that young core of prospects that who knows if they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna do some damage or make an appearance
Trevor
at some point
Story's
this
healthy.
season. Yeah, I'll take the under on that. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot has to go right for them to be a division contender,
Yeah.
but feels more okay. I don't know. I think well, I want to say I feel like the Jays are more likely to finish third than the Red Sox, but the Red Sox I feel like are more likely to finish one or two than the Blue Jays.
You know what? That is actually a really good way of summing up the Red Sox because there are a lot of question marks. I think the one thing that rubs me the wrong way about the Boston Red Sox is I am not sold on Garrett Crochet
Yeah.
being that stud. I don't get me wrong. I think Garrett Crochet is a stud, and I think that he is going to pitch beautifully for the Boston Red Sox in the middle of June when things don't matter. Garrett Crochet feels like the softest dude around to me. The fact that he so vocally wanted nothing to do with the playoffs last year and would rather just sit in garbage that is the White Sox. Just like
Yeah.
was I it just I such a bad taste in my mouth. So do you want a guy who just when the chips are down and the going gets tough is like, "No, I'm good losing," or do you want a guy that wants to win in the playoffs? And until I see Garrett Crochet be the guy who wants to win in the playoffs, I really have a hard time buying him as this unbeatable ace. And maybe I'm being a biased little bitch. Possible. It is possible. But my
Okay, so
God, I cannot fathom getting behind a dude who's just like, playoffs not for me.
okay, I'm with you, but to push back a little bit, and I'm
Yes.
not even going to
Yes.
do this in a way that like is how I feel,
Yes.
but just as far as a devil's advocate of it all,
Yes.
and him not wanting to be traded mid-season to a contender. I remember looking at this last year and also being like frustrated about him. Just
Yeah.
the idea that someone would be like, no, I don't want to play for the Dodgers. I
Yeah.
want to stick with the fucking White Sox. Excuse my language, kids. It's actually legally their new team name is the fucking White Sox. Um, but then it was pointed out, I don't remember all the details well enough on this, but someone made the case about him having more value in free agency, pitching, out of a familiar, comfortable situation, facing softer opponents. Again, I'm not saying I totally buy into that, but I understand the reasoning. So I'm gonna just say I'm giving the benefit of the doubt a little bit in that it might not have been, oh, I don't playoffs aren't for me. It might have been like if I'm putting myself in his shoes, because he's not a
Because he's got 2 years left on his contract. So like the trade the Red Sox made, like they're trying to extend him right now.
well, maybe I'm misremembering this altogether. I thought he was closer to free agency.
No,
Maybe
he's
I'm
got
thinking of
two
somebody
years.
else. Well, then forget everything I just said. And let's cut the episode 6 minutes ago. Yeah, fuck Garrett Crochet. That's what I
There you
always said.
go. There you go. That's the attitude. Grounds crew would love to hear your thoughts on the Boston Red Sox. Are you worried about them? I mean, obviously, I do worry about the Boston Red Sox a little bit because it does feel like another team you can kind of put in that Toronto Blue Jays, Seattle Mariners, Texas Rangers, Houston Astros, like third
Yeah,
wild card kind of
yeah,
realm, right? But am
yeah.
I worried that the Boston Red Sox are going to be a 93 win team and win the division? Not really. But I do think, like you said off the top, I do think the Boston Red Sox have a more likely chance of finishing fourth and a more likely chance of finishing first than the Blue Jays do. So,
Um, they start their schedule: Rangers, Orioles, Cardinals, Blue Jays, White Sox. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe they just catch Baltimore before Baltimore's up and running.
Hmm.
Like there's a path where they just thread the needle of a soft schedule.
I know I've said this before, dude, but the
Ugh.
AL East is like the most interesting division to me this year. And it's not for any other reason than I really do think 2025 could be the year we see the AL East have 500 plus teams. Never been done in baseball history. I don't think that this division is the bone crusher it used to be with two juggernauts. I think that both the Yankees and Orioles are taking slight steps back. I think the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are taking steps forward. And to count the Rays out, I mean, how many times do you need to get slapped in the face after doing that to stop? And we have. We've pretty much counted the Rays out. So there's last time we did that, they did what? Won 22 of 23 games to start the season? Like
Yeah, I'm gonna misquote some philosopher who I don't even know who I'm gonna quote here. So I'm gonna just say I think it was Pitching Ninja that once said
great.
um, something about the Warriors' mentality is to find exhilaration in struggle against a worthy foe.
Yeah.
That's the AL East, right?
Yeah.
In a nutshell, it's
Hmm.
like you've got to be able to find a pleasure and a satisfaction in like not just winning year in year out, but like recognizing the fact that like okay, we are in the meat grinder of the MLB, and to even contend is actually like an accomplishment in
On
itself,
its own.
right? Like there is merit and pleasure in being the Blue Jays in the AL East rather than the Cleveland Guardians in the AL Central. I'm sorry. I'm
Quote,
just going to
end
say it.
quote, pitching ninja.
Pitching Ninja. There we
On
go.
that, folks, thank you so much for following along. That is the Friday episode. By the way, if you are a Saskatchewan resident, well, the walk off is coming your way in 2 weeks. So, Regina, March 13th at the Regina Brewing Company. Get your tickets for that. Moose Jaw, we are playing Rushi Musala, which is the Indian restaurant there in Moose Jaw. We're that
Nice.
kind of comedians. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. Tickets for both those shows available. I'll do my best to throw a link up there as well for you. And then Saskatoon, we're at Stumbletown Distillery Saturday, March 15th.
15.
There you go.
Yes. There
So,
you go.
also Edmonton, March 23rd, the Sunday at Sick
There you
Brewing.
go.
So again, the walk off, we're out and about out west, Saskatchewan, Edmonton. Get your tickets. Would love to see you out. We'll talk some Blue Jays after telling some jokes. All right, folks. Thanks again. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. Appreciate you all. We will see you Tuesday for mailbag. Cheers.